So first, this is usually where a lot of entrepreneurship begins. It begins about the problem. You find something that you want to solve, something that's not working the way you want. So this is the problem part of the pitch deck, showing that you are working on something that's important, and it's important for someone.
And for the problem, you obviously, I would say, have a solution.
Hopefully.
Hopefully would be a better word. So what's your solution? What's the innovation in your solution? And does it solve the problem that you're aiming to solve?
Next part is the market. And I think the market, on one time, if you want to meet an investor, you have to show that this is a big enough market to be suitable for this kind of financing. But at the other hand, what I would like to say, I mean, seeing hundreds of pitch decks, don't just take the figure from the latest McKinsey report on sports goods if you're making sports socks. Put the market size to be relevant and also work your way top down, but also bottom up. So this is the market which we can actually reach at the moment and how this will develop. Super important.
And also super important is how you're going to address this market that you have shown. This is what we're going to do, and how will we do it? Do you have a plan that is believable? Are your team going to fix this? And this is also important. How are you going to sell? Many entrepreneurs think of their solution and their problem and they're super excited, but how are you going to reach your customers?
So far, there are no questions, which means either it's perfectly clear or no one understands anything.
There is
I have a question.
Okay.
I mean, in our case, we have the beneficiaries and the businesses. So, I mean, in this case, on going to market, do we have to mention both of them? Like, how are you reaching the beneficiaries and how are you reaching the businesses that are going to pay for the beneficiaries, or how is it going to look like in this?
Is both sides important for if the business will be successful?
Yes. Yes.
Then you have to show both, I guess.
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you have to find answer for this question? How do you reach your first?
That's another topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's important to understand that the investors need to know how you're going to sell this. Who's buying it? Who are you calling on Monday to get your first meeting?
Yeah. And this is we're stopping a little bit here because I think this is, as Therese said, it's to actually come to the point where you've made your product or your service kind of ready to do something. I don't say it's easy, but actually starting to get customers for it is difficult. That's tough. That's where a lot of people fail in that part. So it's worthwhile thinking through, and that's also something that we're working with in the Språngbrädan program.
Just
Funding.
Is it better to have already tried a pilot phase so that when you get to an investor, you can have already prove what you've already been to the test phase of the market? Is that better off than just going to the investor and telling them, I have this idea, I have this solution, and this is what I think is going to happen?
The more traction you can show, the better it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Even if most likely it's not the real picture, it's just a pilot phase.
Yeah, but it shows that it works,
Okay.
and that someone is willing to use it and maybe pay for it. Super important.
All learning you do from the prototype or pilot or whatever reduces, I mean, you learn something from it, so you reduce the risk of uncertainty, and that's good in the eyes of the investor. Competition. Let's see. I think competition is also, and it's not just about the competitor that's doing the similar screw, or that's doing the similar screwdriver. It's someone else doing the similar kind of hole in the wall, or finding another way to hang your stuff on the wall. So it's substitutes and direct competitors. And I think this is super. And you have to explain how do you position yourself towards this, and why should anyone choose your service or your product instead of the competition.
And competition can also be what they are using today. So if you're aiming for changing a behavior, then it's competition. I understand that.
And be thorough when looking at the competitors. Don't shy away from it. Do your homework. We were talking last week to some of the investors in Netcoin and say there's so many pitch decks we see, and we just do a quick googling and we find 10 more competitors that they haven't even mentioned. So don't put yourself in that position, and don't be blindsided to have this guy kind of tackle you from behind.
And showing your competitors and understanding them is also a way of showing that you know your market and where you're fitting. So the business model, how are you going to make money? And that's super important for the investors. Who's paying for what and how much? Have you partners or distributors? How is your business model looking? Is it an innovative business model? Can it scale? Super important questions.
Status and roadmap. Where are you now? I mean, what have you achieved so far? Have you launched your product? Do you have an MVP, a prototype? Have you sold something? Do you have some letters of intent from some customer? Show what have you achieved up until now? What have you been able to execute? Because there's a lot of what the investors are looking for is people who can execute, who can do these things, not just think it up, but actually do the things that work with it. And also, how does it look forward? What are you planning to do forward? Both for the product and for the business.
And this is what will make the difference in an early stage. We had a question earlier. If you're an early stage company, then the team will be the main key here for doing this to a successful case. So you have to show how, if you are the right team to execute, who are the key members today, what are their expertise, your network around you, advisory boards maybe, and what do you need in the future? Are you going to hire a developer? Where do you find he or she?
So when does that cease to be the most important factor? So you said in an early stage company, the team is the most important part.
Yeah.
But so when does that stop to be the most important part? How much traction do you have to have? Or yeah.
I think when you build an organization, so the founders are not so crucial anymore.
Okay.
So it depends, of course.
Yeah.
When you're starting to go from a team to a company, when you have a structure in place where the structure can take some of the load out of the actual persons, that's when it starts to shift that balance.
Okay.
But of course, I think the founding team is important, and that they will be important for a long time. It's very rarely that investors want the founding team to leave. They want them to be there because these are the guys or girls who have started it all. Black figures. That's very typical early stage startup situation. Now with finances, of course, if you're really early in your pre-revenue, you don't have much finances. You don't have a lot of things to show, but you have to have a plan going forward. You have to have a goal, because if you don't have a goal, and if you haven't actually put the goal down in figures, how do you know if you're succeeding or not? How do you know, okay, we plan to achieve this break even there, or this kind of revenue, or this number of users, or whatever. And if you don't dare to put those down into actual figures, how do you know if you've succeeded? Or are you just kind of plodding along? We are building businesses here, not hobbies. So for the going forward, I think most investors, especially in market introduction phase, would like to have 3, 4, 5 years of forecast. They know that this will probably not be the way it is, but this is a potential if things are going wrong. Or if you are like, if you don't have any revenues, the KPIs, which is key. I got the question before. Key performance indicators, nyckeltal, in Swedish. Which KPIs are you following to make sure that you're on track or that you are succeeding? Is it number of users? Is it number of meetings with clients? Is it visitors to your website, so followers on Instagram, whatever it could be? Those are different kind of KPIs.
It says, do you understand the financial mechanics? What do you mean by financial mechanics?
I would say that it's, I mean, depending on which business you're in, the way that costs and revenue kind of match and work, what things are driving our costs. Okay, we need to employ a lot of people. That's one part. How are revenues coming in from that? How do those, not in like kind of professor in economics level, but just understanding the basics, how money are flowing through your company, coming in or going out. I think that's, because if investors putting 5 million crowns in your company, they want to be pretty sure that you know how to handle those 5 million crowns.
And that could also be if you have an app, for instance, people want to know, okay, what's the cost actually to acquire one client? On what time are they actually becoming a paying client? What's the lifetime of the, and so on, and the churn? So those kind of numbers. And as you asked, if you have those data, of course you have proven yourself a bit more, and that can also be, be a reason for get a higher valuation.
Because, I mean, from what I heard recently, that those data that you provide, they're usually bogus, because they're usually just hypothetical numbers you provide. You don't really know you don't know when a customer is going to be profitable, depending on what business. For example, my business, I don't really know when they'll start being profitable. I can assume and hope when they'll be profitable, but an investor cannot really rely on my data because I haven't done any pilot phase. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. But if you have the data, you have done some. I mean, you have put some ads on digital platforms and so on. So you have your own data. If you don't have your own data, I mean, the best you can guess is maybe, okay, this is a similar product, and the acquisition cost is 8 crowns. So we account on that for some reason. Or, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
of course.
I think it's important to mention that that instead of doing what most people are doing when they're calculating their budget and everything, is that many people are doing like the top-down strategy of calculating the market and everything. But it's important to start from the bottom up. That's something that I rarely hear that anybody is mentioning, because that is the crucial point, and more of a or a better way to kind of direct and try to create a prognos
Forecast.
Yeah, for your budget if you're doing it.
And I think you said one good thing. You have it's what you assume, and I think before you have the data, show your assumptions. Explain what assumptions you are making. Okay, this forecast is based on the assumptions that we will do this. We will be able to first 6 months reach 2,000 customers, because that will also show, that will give the investor, okay, do these assumptions make sense? Do they seem reasonable? And so I think showing your assumptions is also a very good thing. Investment ask.
Investment ask. So this is the conclusion of your pitch deck. You're there, you're presenting to the investors, and you want something from them. You want money, of course, to proceed, to build your business. Maybe you want someone who can contribute with their smartness, their network, their knowledge in some way. Maybe someone who has done a similar journey before, who can help you open doors and so on. So how much capital do you need? And what are you going to use it for? Which milestones will you receive having this capital in? And your valuation, of course, because that's the deal for the investor. How much money they put in and how much
Return.
Equity. what's the equity they get. And I think this is super important. I really want to highlight this. Who is your dream investor? Who are you looking for?
And how do you decide that? It's a good question.
Yeah, and the answer is different for every company in here. Depending on branch, depending on stage, depending on your own network. Do you miss out something that an investor can put in?
I'm afraid.
Due diligence that you do ask around just to see, okay, because there's so many investors, right? So how do you decide, okay, you or you guys are the right fit for us in the future, not just from a financial point, more of a.
Yeah, I would say, and we're also advising the entrepreneurs we're working with, because they are doing a due diligence on you. You should do the same on them. Call startups, other companies that they have invested in. Like Naimul earlier said, are they control freaks or they want to build this business together with you? Who are they? Who are they to work with? Because it's like a marriage. Yeah.
It's actually more difficult to get out from than a marriage. To be perfectly
Yeah.
honest. You know?
So choose wisely and don't accept the first person who shows you the money. Because it's super important. These first investors are your friends.